All right, upcoming events. If you'd like to train with James or myself, I've got 3 quick ones here. We're going to have a core skills series in person in Huntington, West Virginia, August 21st to the 23rd of 2025, January 15th through the 17th of 2026. In person, Huntington, West Virginia. That's extended core skills, the 48-hour approach. You can check that out at gracewaycounseling.com/training. And 2 externships, Indianapolis, Indiana, a brand new launch. We're excited about that. It's going to be a small, intimate externship, July 9th through the 12th, 2025. You can visit IndyEFT.com. That's INDYEFT.com. And then the mothership, externship in Northwest Arkansas, Arkansas EFT Center, July 29th through August 1st in person. George Fowler, myself, will get some great cameos from Dr. James Hawkins, and you can register for that at ArkansasEFT.com. Both those last externships, you can get information by just emailing ArkansasEFT@gmail.com.
All right, Ryan, I'd like to talk about an externship I have coming up in the beautiful Bend, Oregon. I've never been there, but everyone that hears about it says, James, you're lucky to get to go to such a beautiful place. So I'm looking forward to that. That will be October the 15th through the 18th of 2025. You can find out more about that training by going to counseloregon.com/COEFT or COEFT. You can find out more there. And then also, I'm excited for both Ryan and I and the SV team. We have our first ever SV Focus Lab. And the purpose of the SV Focus Lab is to hear about some of the cutting edge ideas that we're working on and practicing, and we're going to share them all with you. But also, in the brand of SV, is going to be some focus practice time with some of these nuance and around EFT and the practice of this beautiful model developed by Dr. Sue Johnson. That will be held here physically in Northwest Arkansas, September 11th through the 13th. But guess what? It's going to be hybrid. So even if you can't make it here in person, you can also attend online. You can sign up for that at successandvulnerability.com. Once again, that'll be the SV Focus Lab, and the whole team will be here September the 11th through the 13th. Thank you so much.
Welcome to the Leading Edge in Emotionally Focused Therapy with your hosts, Dr. James Hawkins and Dr. Ryan Rana. EFT is a dynamic model that humbles even the most seasoned therapists. Together, we want to come alongside you as you continually push the leading edge of your understanding and application of this wonderful model developed by Dr. Sue Johnson.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. We're coming to your ears from a very stormy Northwest Arkansas day. But I love storms, so it's beautiful for me. And a quick shout out to our crew in Minnesota, the Minnesota EFT Center. Incredible. They're alive and well with an incredible board, the great leadership of Kurt Weichel. And they hosted James and I out for an event, incredibly well done. And it was really honored to be with them.
It was, man. It was so refreshing to hear, one, their intentionality and focus with learning this model, and so many great leaders. I forgot Renee's last name right off him, but Renee brought her whole practice out. Kurt brought his whole practice out, and just such vibrant learning. We had Cornelius from the Reno EFT community brought some of his team out. It was just amazing. New Orleans people came out. It was just people from all over. It was amazing and fun.
Yeah, truly inspiring. Yeah. Yes, it is. All right, so we're jumping back into our series today, The Resistant Client. And this is number 2 in, I think, a 6 or 7 part series here. So our topic for today is with the resistant client, containing space and getting in front of this. So, James, take it away. What's your thought on this? This is your series, although I get all fired up with you. But take it away today about containing and getting in front of the resistant client dynamic.
Yeah. So thank you, Ryan. So what happens is that a frame that I've been thinking through is all what we're doing in EFT is, particularly when we're trying to really work efficiently in EFT, is we want to find that zone of resistance. Particularly what I mean, it's where the client, they're stuck between like their hope and their longing, and they've got to be able to lean into vulnerability, but their body just doesn't want to do it because it's either been scary or they just don't know how to manage that in that moment. And so we've got to find that zone of resistance where they're kind of stuck between the longing and the protection some, and the reactivity pops up. So one part of it, when we talk about containing it, if this, it reminds me of a quote George said on Success and Vulnerability. And he said, if we don't contain the reactivity, it will take over your session. And now he's not saying contain it like squash it, hold it down. But what he's saying is you've got to go towards that reactivity and organize it and understand the reactivity and contain it in a relational, I would say for me, is contain it within the relational frame. Because if you just leave it too general, too vague, unexplored, it begins to just pollute the whole, it'll just kind of take over the session process. It becomes too generalized. So we've got to contain some space around the reactivity. And then this takes us back to episode number 64. Sometimes Ryan and I don't always do a good job, but we looked it up this time, where we did an episode about getting out ahead of some of this. And we're going to talk about this today, like how do you get ahead? So if you already know that there's points where these clients hit the resistance, don't let it catch you by surprise. And I'll give you one more story to kind of that helps solidifies this for me, Ryan. So it helps get the containing and getting in front of. It was a George session, and he had just asked the withdrawer to do a really vulnerable enactment. And then right in that moment, for very good reasons, it hit the pursuer's body awkwardly. And the pursuer went right to kind of like they escalated a little bit and they wanted to kind of coach and criticize what the withdrawer had just shared. And George gave it a few sentences, but then he jumped in. Hold on a second. Let me jump back in with you. Because I can see that you're nervous, that something happened to your nervous system right there as your partner was sharing that. And I so appreciate the good reasons why your nervous system is activating, because it's wanting him to really get this and lock it in. But if we do what your nervous system's about to do right here, we know where that's going to take us. Because where do you see that that's going to take us if we go that way with it?
Yeah, I don't trust your nervous system.
That
right
was
now.
the one.
It's so funny to say that because it does have an externalizing flair.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit different than I don't trust you or you're bad.
That's right.
It's almost like saying there's a pattern happening here and I know what's coming. That's really interesting.
And the part, and you, Ryan, I loved how you just said that. And George didn't just say, like, once again, he didn't make it general, like, oh, you always, you never. He says right here. He contained the moment. Right here in this moment, your partner just shared something and it hit your nervous system. And that makes so much sense because your nervous system now is wanting to come in and kind of coach them. But if we do that, so then he gets ahead of it because George already sees if I let her follow this plan or the pursuer's energy do this, I can already see the block that's going to take us to. And that's not going to be good for us. So he does it in a validation and I would say compassionate way. But so he does contain it in a relational frame, and then he gets out ahead in front of where this will take us and what it'll do to the partner who just shared, but also what it'll do to her. Because if we go this way, it's probably just going to lead to us shutting down again.
That's really good stuff, James. Really good stuff. Two things jumped out to me right there. You know, capture the moment has been a phrase that's been around EFT since at least the 90s. You know, I think I remember it being on Sue's original slide deck, which I've had for years. And I know George talks about it and many others. And I would say that's probably one of the most underrated parts of EFT. Can you capture the moment? So a less experienced, a little more less focused therapist, they're letting moments pass by. Right. So there's a really key moment where there's a lot of attachment stuff happening. And the therapist maybe does the way that we were all trained in graduate school, which is to like let people finish. And, you know, my first EFT training, I was with a person and he goes, so EFT is just about making a safe place to process, right? I go, it's a little more than that. But it does make sense, right? So giving people a safe place to process is assuming that they're already safe at some level, right? And so capturing the moment is such a key piece of this. And so when we're on the road, as you know, we start talking about reactivity and escalation, and a lot of people are like, oh, all my clients are out of control. And I don't know if that's really true. But if you miss moments like this, then you're going to see a lot more escalation. So and I think that's a key to this series here is like, you got to capture these moments and contain this space to create some kind of shift. It's not always about a cookie cutter thing. There's different ways to do this, whether we're going to do a lot of using self or trying to get emotion more clear, or maybe we're going to do block strategies. But none of that is possible if you don't capture the moment, because this resistance is going to come like a river, and it's in flow. And if we continue to just let it flow the way it does organically, that never gets it dammed up enough, so to speak, to create a shift that the clients need. They continue to get hurt. I also love the second part of what you said right there. And I've never heard you say it exactly this way, or maybe I have and I've just forgotten. But you're looking at this really stuck person who's in a very resistant posture. And you said they're really stuck between the two parts, the hope part and the longing part, right? I want this, but I don't need it. I need this, but I don't want it, right? And really, people can live that way for decades and decades and decades. And their relationship goes down the drain as these parts we can't find a way to synchronize them, to get them clear, to find out the pain that exists when people are in that space. And so I love that. It's a great phrase. It really gets us into our next episode, which is going to be, I think, something on dysregulation, right? And I think that's a really good segue. But today we'll stay where we are. For me, developmentally, I do this a good bit different than I did 10 years ago. And typically when you have a bad self with a therapist issue, it's not helpful. This is an exception for me because I did this talk with a local group last week. I remember seeing tons and tons of couples, tons of infidelity, specifically between 2004 and 2009. I don't know why. I just had a massive pocket of highly reactive infidelity, kind of attachment injury folks, and they were tough. And I was not clear enough with my model. If you'd asked me that at the time, I thought I was. That's what's scary about, knowing your own model. But anyway, back then I was just younger. I was a lot more patient. I had a lot more energy, and so I would just stay with these horrifically unsafe relationships for years and just continue to do kind of the same session over and over. And most of those cases did actually come out successfully. I still see them sometimes in the community. But I look back and go, so it's not so much that it wasn't helpful to them, although it was very expensive to them. It's more like, how expensive was it to me? Right? I just won't do that anymore. I won't do it. And so that's what I'm talking about, or I think we're talking about around this containing thing. So when I see something, here's my rubric. I got 3 kids studying for tests and projects right now, so the word rubric is on my brain. Here's the rubric for me. I think about kind of 78 harm. All right, so another little cliche we use, or I use at least, which is once I see 7 or 8 times a move in the cycle, that's damning. Okay, so once I see it for the 7th or 8th time, that either will not let the therapeutic process move forward, or that's harming their bond. At that point, my brain is starting to develop a treatment plan informally here. I don't mean like some big form that you use per se. But once I see that, my brain goes, all right, we're going to make a plan here. Either I'm going to try to do it right then, or at least between sessions, I'm going to do a little bit of extra work to go, all right, the same thing's killing us every time. So let's don't keep doing this until next May or wherever we are. All right, let's make a plan. We're going to find a way to contain this and create some kind of shift in experience somehow, some way. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, it does, Ryan. Man, the one statement you made that maybe my brain has been chewing on now, it's capture the moment. And for me, I don't know if I'm being too simplistic here, but that's what I see in my own work when I don't do well with this, or when I see people I supervise and they struggle, is they don't capture the moment. They just try and let it pass by. Or definitely for me, it's like, ooh, this is uncomfortable. How can we get out of the discomfort? Instead of saying, nope, we don't got to get out of it right now. Let's capture and harness the energy from that moment. Because my guess is if that's happening in my office, this is the same thing that happens to them at home. So I need to I love that, capture the moment. That's what I want to almost like lock in on this. That's how you contain it. The first thing you've got to do to work with this to contain it and get out ahead of it is you got to capture what is in front of you. So we're going to come back and we'll talk about that a little bit more practically. But first, let's take a break. It's an honor for Ryan and I to get to come to you on these airwaves, to meet you where you are with you and your clients who are pushing the leading edge in your clinical work. And we're thankful for this opportunity and for the work that you do. And we want to invite you that if you believe in the concepts of this podcast and you find them helpful, as we do, we just invite you to be able to invest and to help keep this mission and this project going. You can support us by going on Venmo and looking for @Left Podcast. That's at LEFT PODCAST Left Podcast. And you can show your support. Once again, if you yourself are in a hard position or you serve maybe less resource population and therefore it affects your fees, please don't worry about giving. Just continue to enjoy. But if you can, we invite you to help support this mission and keep it going. Thank you so much. All right. So let's talk about why and what we mean, though, by this containing in the reactivity. So what are we talking about containing? What for me it is that kind of the I think we talked about this before. I don't know if I'm talking about Minnesota, but it's when we're saying is to contain it. We're talking about the resistant client. So we're talking about containing resistance. It's when they won't let you kind of into their internal world, whether that's maybe their own direct experience or the resistance of them. Maybe it could even be a resistance towards being open to their partner. So it's really the resistance that's coming up in the present moment is what we're trying. That's the what. Why this matters is if you don't do that, if you don't contain that and make that explicit, then they can't do anything to change it. They have to be able to see the moment, and you've got to see the moment and get clear to do it. I like what Ryan was saying. I need to fully flesh out the resistance that happened in front of me to understand what triggered it, what happens when this resistance show up in the relationship, and how does it keep them stuck in this perpetual hellacious Groundhog Day that just keeps happening over and over and over again. So that's my kind of what, and the why we got to get it is because if we don't make it clear, we can't get them to unify against it to help change it. I don't know. What would you add to that, Ryan?
Yeah, like I was saying, just that capture the moment is so key. We can't emphasize that enough. Mm-hmm. If you miss it, you can come back to it. Mm-hmm. And Gail Palmer's, when I teach with her, she's corrective. Because we talk about things like, when there's an active emotion, it has a shelf life. Like it's time's ticking before it leaves the room. And she'll say, but you can come back. So I don't want to be too rigid with that. Mm-hmm. But if you don't capture enough moments,
that's right,
it's trouble. And what's ironic about that is, number one, you got to know what you just saw. And so you got to be able to see what you're looking at there, because there's, as last episode, if you misassess resistance, if you see it as something else, then you're going to work with the wrong thing. But also our clients speed up. And I tend to operate that most people are partially or completely unaware that this is even going on. Like it's so automated. Like I had someone ask me one time, how do I get dressed in the morning? And I'm like, I don't know, and it's like, I think I put my right sock on before my left. Why do I do that? I have no idea. So if I do it for 11 years, yeah, exactly. He said, I don't know either. That's exactly like that though. Like people are just like, this is what we do. And I'm just, okay, right sock, left sock, right sock, left sock. I don't know why I'm doing that. And so unless you capture the moment, you're not going to be able to change my sock order. And if my sock order is killing me and destroying my chance at having closeness in life, then I need you to bring this, I need you to capture this moment where I start my sock changing and help me see it. So that's the first thing I think about, the 78 harm, the 7th or 8th time, I'm just doing the process of EFT, doing affect assembly, doing reflection, validations, trying to reorganize this, trying to get a sense of what goes on in their cycle. And the 7th or 8th time something comes out that pops that's doing harm, I start to make a kind of a mental treatment plan. And the things I want to do in that treatment plan is, number one, can I find a way to unlock the block? That rhymes. I want to unlock the block. So the way I've been teaching that in the last year or two has been thinking about one of those, what are they called? The locks that have the thing on the front that you turn, the numbers. What is that called?
Padlock?
A padlock, but it has the number. You know what I mean? Like
Combination lock?
Combination lock, yeah. I think about that. People's nervous system are locked that way. That resistant client's body, even without their choice almost, is a locking system. And as long as that stays locked, they continue to do the same move, all largely outside of their own awareness. So how can I find a way to humanistically come up against that lock and to kind of turn it the right amount of times to help their nervous system just slow down, right? So functions, parts of validation, attachment framing, those kind of pieces is what we're talking about. We're going to come back to that with more specificity in future episodes. But 1A is how do I unlock the block? 1B is how can I repetitively get them to see what they're doing in a way that's not overly shaming. I don't mind just a hair of shame because there's a function for shame, but I don't want to like leave them in the puddle like thinking that I think this is their fault, because I don't. It's never that simple. And, you know, I don't know if you use this or not. I got this, I forget where I got it from, but on Course Skills 4, I show, or is it 3? That's Course Skills 3. I show a clip from the TV show Grey's Anatomy. And it's a woman, and she's dying of cancer, and she's in her last days. And they're trying to make a decision to go home to die or to stay in the hospital. Anyway, this long sequence, and it's a hetero couple, and the husband's there, and he's just really flat. And so then she says to him, "What are you feeling?" He's like, "I'm fine." Right. And so he leaves, and she turns to the nurse, which is Christina in Grey's Anatomy, and says, "They really don't know." And she's like, "What do you mean?" And she's like, they don't know. And I think it's really accurate. When someone's nervous system is that locked and that charged, you really are having massive gaps in awareness of what's going on.
Wow.
And while EFT is not an insight model, some basic insight so that we can get to the next phase of this into a new space is necessary. And so when you see the 78 harm, I want to like make a mental treatment plan. I got to capture this moment the next time it happens, or maybe we get out in front of it in our summaries, or both ideally. And I want to unlock the block. And then I want to repetitively mirror from an attachment lens and show this person not only what they're doing for the good reason, but also the impact on multiple things, as we'll get to in the future. And that's not easy.
I like that, Ryan. I agree with that synchrony of what you just said, because the way I was going to say it was we have to reflect. We have to be able to jump in. Like I hear Sue's words in the back of my head, where Sue is, hold on. Can I try on what I think I'm seeing? Can I try that on for a moment? And she's going to go into her reflection, because Sue will want you to see it. And that reflection is Sue's way of humanistically trying to let you see because when they're living in it, they don't know. And I'm guilty of that too. Sometimes I'm in something and I'm drowning in my own emotion. And then it takes something, usually my wife or one of my loving daughters, to help me see when I'm not hold on a second. Is this what I'm seeing? And then it's like, oh, I had no idea I was coming across like that when I was in that moment. Thank you for helping me see that. Then it helps me shift. But if you keep trying to just like let me stay in it and just keep kind of pushing and poking at me, you're just going to get more of my reactivity until you can say, hold on, James, something's happening here. Can I try on what I think I'm seeing? And I like that it's from a humanistic, I'm not judging you. It's just, here's what's happening. So I like that. And then the 7 to 8 times of the harming move, you've got to have the gumption in you as a therapist to step in. Me and Ryan were talking about this in Minnesota. Tell me if I'm getting this wrong, Ryan, but this is maybe how I took it. Sometimes as therapists, we're trying to be too nice that it almost hurts our clients.
Yes, for sure.
Because it's like 7 to 8 times and that keeps happening. That's not good for the client. We've got to have the way to say, hold on. I'm seeing something and I need to jump back in. So that's one. No, and then do you know what you just saw as a therapist? Can you see the resistance? I like that image, by the way. I think in pictures. So Ryan, a slide is coming. I like the combo lock idea. And I'm going to put all these moves on that combo lock. And the idea, what you said, Ryan, I liked how you said with a good combo lock, I had one in high school. It might say turn left to one time, turn right to five times, turn this. But the key is it's not just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's like you have to be repetitive. And sometimes you might hit that combo wrong and you have to go back and reset the whole lock. You spin it around and reset and start over again until you finally, and the lock pops open and you're like, I can finally get to my stuff inside so I can get to class.
Yeah. Let's stay with that metaphor.
Go for it.
I may have been trained wrong. I don't know, but I'm flashing back to junior high here. With those combination locks, I would always turn it 4 or 5 times to the right just to clear the previous memories of
Exactly.
it. And now I'm feeling for something.
Exactly.
Even in a loud hallway, I'm going back to that first number and there should be a little click there, right? And then I'm going to turn it left, listen to that other click before you come back right. And that's the art and attunement of EFT. I'm looking at body language. I'm looking at breathing. I'm trying to be with that person because they're giving me subtle clues about, hey, are you unlocking right now? Is it coming across like I'm with you? Like I'm seeing your dilemma? Like, are you taking a nice deep breath because it's coming across like Ryan gets me? Or are you still blind? Or are you feeling defensive because I'm in a hurry? And you can tell I'm trying to move you without really understanding you. And so I think that's a nice metaphor because that lock is giving you little clues about whether you're on or off.
There we go.
Yeah.
I think we just burst on something new in the training. I like that.
But 3 numbers on a combination, last thing, we won't overdo the lock. I'm sorry. 3 numbers on a lock may involve 12 or 15 turns, right? By the time we clear it, by the time we go right, we go back left twice, if I remember that's correct, find that last number. It really is a really nice metaphor for someone who's very, very stuck. And it takes great courage and assertiveness to capture these moments and do this well. For many of us, we're going against how we were trained, which we say that on here a lot. How you were trained to work with individuals can have a not so great relationship with working with couples, especially contentious couples. So a lot of us have to find our voice to capture those moments lovingly, but unapologetically. No, we're stopping right now. So it's not like, could we stop here? Like that's a beautiful thing in some cases, but not here. So when these moments come in, they're going to speed up and they're going to go to the same narrative again. And if you don't capture moments, they're going to look at you and say, so what do we do? They may do that anyway, but the more moments you capture, the more that question you get, which we don't have a great answer for that. So the things that I see clinicians do, I did a consultation last week, really, really high quality, very experienced EFTer. I appreciated him being vulnerable. He brought his hardest case. He's like, I'm feeling really demoralized with them. And I know for a fact that he's doing great work with other couples, and he's like, I'm like 130 sessions in. We're making no progress. Like we're like 60 sessions of the same exact movement. I'm like, what are you doing? And I got empathy. I have no doubt that if I went, I'd get stuck too. This is not like this is a skill problem on his end. But it is a situation. I'm like, I remember those days where I would stay with the same thing happening for 60 sessions, and I just won't do that anymore. All right, so we spent the whole hour talking and role-playing about how we capture those moments. I'm sorry, endless metaphors. How we throw enough sandbags around that move where it's captured, where I'm going to get that person's attention in as attuned way as possible. But what I do see people do, and you tell me if this fits for you, I know you do a lot of supervision too, is some people just sort of ignore the resistance and try to go below it.
Yes.
And they think that's EFT.
No.
And it's not EFT.
No.
So, and what stinks about that is it's accurately misattuned. In other words, if this is really fear or this is really your trauma, so let's just ignore what just happened and like go for the underlying emotion. You're probably right. It probably is fear or some trauma response, but it's so misattuned to the moment they can't come with you.
Exactly. I want to give Lisa Palmer Olson a shout out on that one because she told me about a lesson Sue had to teach her early in the career. And particularly like even in stage 1, like you might be on the trail of sadness, but if that reactivity and fear pops up, Sue would say, you've got to privilege it. Because even though you might be right and there's a sadness there, you've got to privilege the fear. Because if you can move the fear out of the way, then you get access back to the underlying emotion. But you can't skip it. You cannot. If you try and keep skipping the fear and reactivity, it will hijack the process every time.
Yeah, and this moment we're talking about is a key indicator of how much you're going to like the model, how much you can stay with it. Sometimes I see people grabbing other models right here.
For the resistance, yeah.
Yeah, I don't have a dog in that fight. It doesn't matter to me if you integrate, but if someone's going to integrate, I want it to be a good reason, not because I don't know how to manage these moments. Mm-hmm. And so just deep diving for emotion is probably accurately, but very misattuned. Mm-hmm. There's very few places where you're testing, can I trust myself? Can I trust the model? Mm-hmm. That when something's going bad, capture the moment, organize what is happening.
So wait, that's organize what is happening,
right
not where
now.
you want to be. What's happening right now?
Yeah, not where they were.
That's right.
Not where you want them to be, right here and now. Here's the good reasons that you're going away. Hang on. We're going to stay here for 4 minutes.
Hey, Ryan's hitting a timeout sign. Y'all can't see, but that's a good one.
There's an assertiveness there, right? And so that organize what is happening right in front of you. Be with that. Mm-hmm. The other thing I see is people a little better. They put the behavior in the cycle, but they do it quickly. All right. So they put it, so, whatever behavior we're talking about, any resistance, by the way, is the P in tempo. It's the action tendency.
Mm-hmm. Protection. Yeah.
Yeah. It's protection. And so they do that, which is a step up of quality of therapy from just trying to deep dive 10 steps ahead of the client, or mediate would be even lower level probably, or skill teach, right? But as we're moving up towards a little better, they put it in the cycle. They put it on the action tendency, but they do it quickly. And if someone is not very stuck, you can just put it in the cycle and continue to repeat it over and over and over, and repetition wins. It's good. But if they're very, very stuck to the point where you're like, man, this feels like almost like a resistance, now there has to be more space. There has to be more time spent on that in most situations. And that's something that the group that I last did a consult with someone to my right said, so clarity is kindness. It is. I think that's a Brene Brown thing. If I can help you, if you do something that hurts the therapeutic relationship and hurts your relationship at home, and I do 100 sessions and you're not really, really clear, I've not been as kind as I can. Mm-hmm. I'd rather take the chance of a rupture with you, knowing that I'll come back and repair, to help you see this, than to continue to just flow down river with you as you get hurt over and over and over.
Man, Ryan, I'm trying to look at my notes. This is good. I hope for you as listeners, I think a big part of our heart while we're doing this is because when you said something, Ryan, forgive me, I'm going back. I want people to know part of our heart why we did this podcast, and even what we do on the SV side. Sue and the trainer team before said, so they've given us a model and a map we can trust. Like when I pull up my EFT map to work with my couples, I have confidence, you all. Like I know this works. And now what we're talking about here is how to take that part and be super intentional in that point of resistance, so you don't have to give up on a map that really works. Just because I'll just use another example. Like if I'm going on a road trip to go visit my family who lives near Indianapolis, shout out to the Indiana crew in bringing Ryan up. If I'm going to visit them and all of a sudden I hit a spot where there's in Effingham, Illinois is a famous spot my family stops at. If there's road construction, do I just say, y'all, we just got to give up, you all. We got to go back to Arkansas. We can't go to Indiana. No, I'm going to say, well, what's the point of resistance here? What's happening? It might be road construction. Is there something going on with our vehicle? And I'm going to address the situation on how can we keep proceeding. And I think for us in this podcast, it's like, hey, meet them in that point of resistance, because it actually is the path. We don't have to give up. And what are some ways we can work with that resistance instead of just giving up? Because if your clients can make it through that resistance easily, they wouldn't be your client. They would be fine. So they're saying, help us. We don't know how to work with the resistance. Can you help us through it? Even though they can't say it that way, I would say we know that that's what's happening to them. I don't know.
I like what you're saying. That's a great metaphor again. And I sometimes think they don't even know this is the contributing factor. Like it's like I've got a tumor here that's got pressure on my really important artery or something. But they've got such a strong narrative, that toxic story we talk about here. They haven't even connected the dots. So this accurate reflection, this mirror we're holding up, is also revelation for them.
That's right.
Because they don't realize that when I go quiet here, that all the impacts on the bond. And so this is doing so many things. So we have to contain this. We have to capture the moment.
All right, y'all. Thank you so much for being with us in this new series. We look forward to you next time. But until then, keep pushing the leading edge of your learning and understanding so you can help your clients push their leading edge of learning and understanding as well in this beautiful model by Sue Johnson.
Thank you for listening. We hope this experience helps you push the leading edge in your work to help people connect with themselves and with each other. Please subscribe to our podcast and leave us a 5-star review. You can contact us at pushtheleadingedge@gmail.com, and you can follow us on our Facebook page at Push the Leading Edge. You can follow Ryan on Facebook at Ryan Rana Professional Training and on his website, ryanranatraining.com. You can follow James on Facebook and Instagram at DocHawkLPC. You can also check out his website, DocHawkLPC.com.